Your mind is killing you, and you still think it's your greatest gift. You wear your intelligence like armor. Every emotion gets translated into theory. Every wound becomes a chapter in your self-analysis. Every moment of confusion, you smother it with insight before it can breathe. And you think this is strength. You've trained yourself to believe that thought is salvation, that understanding will make the ache go away, that philosophy will protect you from the raw and the real. But what if it's doing the opposite? What if your mind, so vast, so articulate, so masterfully defended, is the very thing that's keeping you from life? Carl Jung called it the inflation of the intellect, a kind of psychic bloat, where thought expands until it crowds out everything else. Feeling, embodiment, connection, presence. And the worst part is, it looks like clarity. You sound enlightened, you sound composed. But inside, you're lost in a house with no doors. Each idea opens to another corridor. Each conclusion folds into a deeper uncertainty. You're not thinking to grow. You're thinking to avoid. Avoid feeling what has no name. Avoid silence. Avoid stillness. The kind of stillness that demands your presence, not your commentary. You've built a library inside your head, lined with theories, illuminated with quotes, but it has no windows. No exits, just echoes. You wander its halls looking for something that feels like truth. But the truth is that you are alone in a maze of mirrors. And like the golem of Prague, you were created with good intentions, crafted from sacred texts animated by purpose, made to protect yourself, your beliefs, your spirit, but something went wrong. The golem was a guardian that became a destroyer. Not out of evil, but because it lost its center. It kept acting, kept moving, kept following the logic of its creation. Long after the soul that animated it had gone quiet, that's what overthinking does. It begins as protection, it becomes automation, and eventually it replaces presence entirely. Late at night, your body aches in a way you can't diagnose. Your chest tightens, but you're not sure if it's anxiety or absence. So you go back to the library. You read, you search, you annotate your own suffering as if footnotes will make it stop, but they never do, because the ache isn't asking to be explained, it's asking to be felt, and that's the one thing the fortress won't allow, because to feel would mean leaving the safety of language. It would mean being vulnerable. It would mean being seen. You don't need another insight. You don't need another metaphor. You need to step out of the maze. You need to let the mirror crack. You need to stop worshipping the golem that's supposed to protect you and realize you're not under threat, you're under arrest. And the jailer is your own brilliance. And the door isn't locked, but leaving means letting go of being right, letting go of being admired, letting go of the certainty you've mistaken for safety. And in that surrender, the one thing you've forgotten how to be comes back to you, real. You know how to explain yourself, but you don't know how to be yourself. You can name every pattern, every trigger, every shadow. You've mapped your inner terrain like a seasoned cartographer. You've even predicted the next storm before it hits. And yet, when someone looks you in the eye and asks, "How are you really?" you pause. Not because you're hiding, but because you don't know. You've spent so long studying yourself that you've become a concept, a collection of insights, a highly informed absence. You're the most emotionally intelligent person in the room, and the most emotionally unreachable, because everything you feel gets routed through the mind first. Before you allow a tear, you ask if it's valid. Before you admit a need, you wonder if it's codependent. Before you speak your truth, you soften it, polish it, make sure it aligns with your narrative. You've mistaken understanding for intimacy, control for wholeness, performance for presence. Jung warned of this fracture. When the persona, the mask we wear to function, becomes fused with the intellect, the result? A human who appears real but cannot be touched. You've become the explanation of a person, and no one suspects a thing because you say all the right words. You feel like safety. You even seem enlightened. But when the day ends, you are exhausted in a way that has nothing to do with effort. It's the fatigue of living one step removed from your own life. You write beautiful reflections on the nature of vulnerability, but you rehearse every text 5 times before hitting send. You've read Rilke, you've quoted Hillman, but you still feel panic when someone simply tells you, "I missed you." Kafka's Burrow wasn't just literature, it was prophecy, a mind tunneling into itself so deeply it forgot how to come up for air. And that's where you live now, in tunnels, in monologues, in the ceaseless pursuit of why, but the soul does not live in answers, it lives in touch, in eye contact, in moments that don't make sense but still move you. You've forgotten how to be moved. You're waiting for permission from your intellect to be human again. But it's not coming. The mind has done its job. It kept you safe. It named your pain. It built the walls. But healing doesn't happen in the naming. It happens in the surrender. It happens in the moment you let someone see you. Not the version of you you've polished, but the one that still stumbles over the word love. You are not your insight. You are not your discipline. You are not your clarity. You are a soul aching to be less impressive and more alive. And the moment you stop trying to sound like you figured it out is the moment someone finally feels you. And maybe for the first time in years, you'll feel yourself too. You're not processing, you're avoiding, and you've just made it look like enlightenment. You've built a ritual out of self-awareness. A sophisticated system of emotional surveillance. Every feeling must be filtered, formatted, explained. You catch your breath before it becomes a sob. You revise your honesty until it sounds intelligent. But what you call healing is actually the art of staying untouched. You manage sadness like an analyst. You outline your fears like a keynote speaker. You don't feel the storm, you forecast it. And in doing so, you convince yourself that you're in control, that you're growing, that you're winning some private war with chaos. But Carl Jung saw it clearly, that when the mind is disconnected from the body and soul, it doesn't elevate you, it inflates you. And the inflated mind is not wise. It's terrified of being cracked open, because beneath the thought loop, beneath the perfectly curated perspective is something unscripted, a trembling, a realness you've trained yourself to outsmart. This is the agony of overthinking, not just the endless spinning, but the secret hope that thinking will protect you from feeling. You think you're building clarity, but you're really building distance. You think you're healing, but you're rehearsing, and no one sees the cost, because from the outside, it looks beautiful. You're articulate, you're composed. You're the kind of person people trust, but inside you're exhausted. You're hollow, you're living in a body you don't inhabit. It's like crying into a soundproof room. The emotions echo, but no one responds. Not even you. You've confused awareness with presence, analysis with connection, curation with intimacy. But connection isn't clever, it's raw. It's that moment you say, "I don't know what I feel, but I want to be held." And you say it badly, and you say it trembling, and you let it be heard. You've built your emotional world like a stock portfolio. You minimize volatility, you spread the risk, you make sure nothing unpredictable can ruin you. But in doing so, you've also guaranteed one thing: nothing unpredictable can move you. No wonder you feel disconnected, no wonder life tastes like paper. You've replaced experience with pre-approved interpretations. The parable of the Chinese farmer told you the truth, that control is an illusion, that meaning changes with time, that the wisest thing you can do is to stop labeling everything as good or bad, right or wrong, safe or unsafe. But you keep doing it anyway because certainty feels safer than being undone. Still, the soul doesn't want safety, it wants freedom, and freedom is messy. It's not composed, it's not polished. It's crying without understanding why. It's saying, "I love you," and not being sure if you'll be loved back. It's trusting the moment without designing it in advance. You've been thinking your way around that kind of life, but life is not a problem to be solved. It's a pulse to be felt. You don't need another mental model. You need a moment where you forget what healing is supposed to look like and just let yourself be broken and seen. Because sometimes the most profound thing you can do is collapse into a truth you can't explain and let someone hold you there, not to fix you, but to finally make you real. There's a kind of loneliness no one warns you about. The kind that comes not from being left behind, but from seeing too much. You've read the subtext of every conversation. You've mapped the motivations behind every smile. You've analyzed your friendships down to their psychic architecture. And now you can't stop. You walk into a room and you don't enter it. You assess it. You're always a layer above the moment. Slightly outside of joy, slightly ahead of sorrow, hovering over your life like a drone, capturing footage you never step into. And you think this is insight. You think this is mastery. But what it really is exile. You've become a ghost in your own story. You've split yourself. The thinker is alive and well, sharp, aware, impressive. But the feeler, the one who laughs too hard, cries without permission, says, "I need you," without a caveat. That one is missing. Jung called it the loss of wholeness, the moment the persona fuses with intellect and the self is reduced to performance, and the world applauds. You sound profound, you sound evolved. You're the person others come to for clarity, but clarity is cold when it's not rooted in contact. Insight is empty when no one gets to touch you. You're a museum of wisdom, but everything is behind glass. Sometimes in the quiet, you remember what you've lost. You remember being 7, laughing without structure. You remember being held without having to explain what you were feeling. But now, even your nostalgia is curated. Even your sadness is processed. You tell stories about your loneliness instead of letting yourself be lonely. You write poems about connection but avoid phone calls. You crave to be known, but you never stop performing. You were never told that too much thinking could lead to emotional starvation, that the mind, when overused, can become a cocoon that never opens. You wake up some days and feel like an idea, not a person, and that's not because you're broken, it's because you've been taught that safety is better than being seen. But safety never held anyone. Safety never made someone stay. Safety never made you feel alive. You've mastered the art of being admirable. Now it's time to remember how to be felt. You don't need to say the perfect thing. You don't need to carry the room with your insight. You don't need to be wise in every moment. You need to say something unedited. You need to cry in front of someone and not apologize for it. You need to let the silence grow awkward until something true comes out of it. Because what you've been missing isn't clarity, it's contact. It's someone placing a hand on your back when you can't speak. It's someone saying you don't need to explain. I'm still here. It's you, unfiltered, unready, unscripted, being loved anyway. That is what breaks the loneliness. Not thinking better, but daring to be seen when you're not at your best. You've been brilliant long enough. Now it's time to be known. There's a point where even your mind turns against you. The insights stop helping, the journaling stops working, even the books, the sacred ones, the ones that once held you together, feel hollow, and you're left in a strange kind of silence. Not peaceful, but barren, like a voice has been calling your name for years, and you've only just now realized you've never answered it. You try harder, of course. You analyze the silence. You intellectualize the burnout. You look for the lesson, the symbol, the system, but nothing comes because this isn't a moment for thinking. It's a collapse, and it's holy. You're not being punished. You're being returned. This is the moment the soul finally rebels. After years of being ignored, negotiated with, narrated over, it demands to be felt. It shows up as rage you can't explain, as grief that doesn't belong to any one story, as joy that terrifies you with its unfiltered brightness. You've been told this means something's wrong, that your discomfort is dysfunction. But Jung saw it differently. He called it the beginning of individuation, the start of real wholeness, because before transformation feels like clarity, it feels like death, the death of your mask. the death of the narrative you've been protecting, the death of your need to always know what it means. And in that death, you begin to feel alive again, not polished, not insightful, but present. There's a moment many thinkers reach, a point where the ideas become too tight, where the systems meant to liberate begin to suffocate, where even your favorite philosophies feel like cages. You hit that wall, and something inside you whispers, I don't want to understand anymore. I want to feel. It's terrifying, because it means surrendering your best defense. It means putting down your explanations. It means letting the ache stay unexplained. It means crying in public. It means not being the wisest person in the room. And it means being real. This is the paradox. You think you've built a mind so powerful that it can save you. But it's that same mind that's been keeping you from the thing you crave most. Connection, contact, the soft, aching miracle of being here without knowing why. You don't need more clarity. You need the courage to not know. You need to stop thinking and start listening to what your body's been saying all along, that it's tired, that it's lonely, that it wants to be touched, not analyzed, that it wants to be seen in its mess, not its mastery. You can't think your way into aliveness. You have to break into it. You have to let the soul take over, not to destroy you, but to rebuild what thinking alone could never reach. Because healing doesn't arrive when you solve yourself. It arrives when you stop running from what's already true, that you are more than your mind, you are more than your understanding, you are the silence beneath the answer, the tremble behind the theory. And when you finally stop trying to fix that, when you let it breathe and hurt and sing without a reason, you'll feel something you haven't felt in years. You don't return with more wisdom, you return with less noise, not with a conclusion, but with a breath. The mind that once narrated everything goes quiet, not because it's defeated, but because it finally understands it was never meant to lead. It was never the destination, only the path. And the path ends here, in the now, in the unedited, in the holy mess of being alive without a map. This is not the death of thought, it's its rightful dethroning. Carl Jung called this wholeness. Not the dominance of intellect, but the integration of what was forgotten. You begin to feel the world again, not just think about it. You let the breeze hit your skin without narrating its symbolic meaning. You smile at someone without performing safety. You speak, and it's not rehearsed. It's real, it's raw, it's enough. This is where the trap ends, not because you solved it, but because you stopped believing you needed to. You step out of the mirror maze. You stop trying to make every thought mean something. You stop needing your pain to be useful. And suddenly the world is soft again. You remember the Japanese word wabi-sabi, the beauty in imperfection, the sacredness of what's incomplete, the miracle of being a little broken and still allowed to exist. You sit with someone and don't fill the silence. You let your eyes water and don't apologize. You stop curating your life for comprehension and you begin to live a life that can finally be felt. You become simple again, not stupid, not small, but free, because the mind is no longer a fortress, it's a guest, and the soul is home. So maybe philosophy wasn't the trap, maybe it was the teacher, the lantern in the dark, the voice that led you to the edge and then gently let go. Because what's beyond thought isn't ignorance, it's presence. What's beyond analysis isn't confusion, it's connection. And what's beyond the agony of overthinking is the quiet, radical joy of being exactly who you are without having to explain it. If you made it this far, maybe you recognize yourself in this. Maybe you've been waiting for someone to say, you don't have to be brilliant to be loved. You're not alone, you never were. And now finally, you can come back, not to the mind,